Welcome to the InvestFourMore Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Ferguson, and I am your host. I am an active real estate investor. I flip 15 to 30 houses a year. I've got residential and commercial rental properties. I'm an agent with 9 people on my real estate team who've sold thousands of houses over the years. And I talk about what's going on in my career, as well as interview other amazing agents, investors, landlords, flippers, wholesalers, and companies who can help those people succeed. So I want to give a quick shout out to my sponsor, Patch of Land. They funded a flip for me in 6 days. I emailed them on a Sunday afternoon. They responded in less than 15 minutes. They have rates below 8%, work in 45 states, will fund 85% of a deal, and fund the repairs as well. Great company who I love working with, Patch of Land. And for my podcast listeners, I have a special discount page for my products, InvestFourMore.com/discount. That's InvestFourMore.com/discount. We've got coupons on all my coaching programs. Some of those programs involve calls with me, consulting, video training, and much, much more. All right, let's get to the show. Hey, it's Mark, and we're back with another show. Today, I've got a very exciting guest. Hopefully, I can pronounce his name right. I think I got it, but it's Stephane De Baets, who is the CEO of Aspen REIT. And I'm excited to talk to Stephane because we've never really talked about REITs much on this show. And not only is he kind of running a REIT, but it's a very unique REIT, and it's brand new. So I'm really excited to hear about him, get some of his backstory, and learn about this REIT and what's going on with it. So, Stephane, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm very well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I always start this off first with my guests before we get into the REIT and everything that's going on with that, is just a little bit of background on how you got started in real estate, your history, what got you to this point, if you don't mind.
Another problem, I was born and raised in Europe, spent all my education over there, and then decided I'm coming from Belgium, which is a very small country. So I decided that it was time for me to see the rest of the world. So I migrated in the early 90s to Southeast Asia, and I was an institutional stockbroker over there. I don't know if you remember, but in 1997, there was the so-called Asian crisis when the local currencies got depegged from the US dollar, and a lot of very wealthy people in Asia went from being billionaires to being bankrupt just because of currency devaluation. So at that time, I got involved into the restructuring of the portfolio of bad debt, and by destiny or by choice, I was handling most of the hospitality-related loan. So I got to develop a very acute expertise of hospitality assets. And I did that from, I would say, the late 1990s, so 98, 99, up until 2008, when most of the non-performing loans got completely restructured, and I set up my own boutique hospitality-centric investment bank based in Bangkok in Thailand. And we started investing on behalf of our clients, buying hotels, developing hotels. We sold most of the portfolio just ahead of the Lehman Brothers crisis. And at that time, we decided to apply what we had learned in the Asian crisis and say, why don't we take advantage of the U.S. crisis and acquire very good trophy assets below replacement cost. And so we went on a shopping spree, and we identified a few very good assets operating in extremely high barrier to entry markets. And we offer the current owner to purchase those properties and to inject a substantial amount of capital in order to bring this property to the former glory. And that's how I got involved into the hotel investing in the United States.
Very cool. No, very interesting. You've been all over the place, and I do a lot of fix and flips myself. So on a much smaller scale, kind of the same idea of buying distressed properties, making them better, and then creating a lot of value using different strategies. So with this REIT. Have you ever done a REIT before or been involved in one?
Yes, we actually, even though a single asset REIT, it's a first in North America. The business model of taking single asset and effectively allowing the general public to piggyback on a game which is typically only reserved to market professional or institution, that business model is being developed in Asia for about 15, 20 years. They call it either property fund or single asset REIT. We did quite a few of these in Asia, and they are still performing extremely well. And we thought that in a day and age where the word on the street is really to cut the food chain and to create point-to-point investing, it was necessary to bring this kind of product to North America and to allow the man on the street to choose a direct exposure to assets that they like and to enjoy 100% of the economic interest of those assets without having to bleed to a food chain of advisor, manager, asset allocator, etc., etc. So in my humble opinion, it's really something that effectively it's a democratization of the private equity investing business model.
Okay, very cool. Now, a lot of my audience will probably be familiar with REITs and how they work, real estate investment trusts. But can you explain kind of the traditional REIT and how it works in the United States right now?
Yes, absolutely. Traditionally in the United States, a REIT will be a portfolio manager taking money from all kinds of institutions and the general public and then building a diversified portfolio of assets. So all the REITs that you see currently private or publicly traded are a portfolio of bundle assets put together by a fund manager. Now, the problem with that, the beauty with that is you have diversification and you have a very large value assigned to a portfolio. So you have a certain degree of liquidity, you have diversification, and that's what people like to have. But we are different in a sense that if you invest into a REIT today, you don't have a frozen picture of what you're investing in. You see a portfolio of assets, but there's nothing guaranteeing you what the portfolio of assets will look like in 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months. So effectively, it is fair to say you are not investing in assets themselves, you are effectively investing into assets subject to a strategy by a portfolio manager. And that could be value added or value not added, depending on the quality of the fund manager managing the portfolio. So what we're doing here is completely different. We say we're not offering diversification, but we create a REIT that has only one and will always have only one asset. What you see is what you get. You like that property, you want to have exposure to it, you buy the share of the single asset REIT, and that's all what you're going to own. But in the future, what I think is going to happen, like in other markets, is the asset class itself will develop, which means we're going to have multiple single asset REIT in the near future listed on the various exchanges in the United States. And the investor, the general public, will be able to build their own diversification. I'll give you an example. I like the New York market. I want to own a piece of the St. Regis, New York. Get me some share of that. I'm very bullish on the Miami market because it's a booming town and everybody's moving there because of tax reasons. Let me buy a few shares of the Delano. I am bearish on Los Angeles because of the forest fire and the high property tax environment. I don't want exposure there. If you have a multiple series of single asset REIT offered to the investor, you are able to build up your own diversification. So what we are is we are the antithesis of the current REIT on the market. We give access to certain property to the general public, and we believe the general public is smart enough to make their own investment decision and create effectively their own diversification.
No, that's a very interesting concept, and it makes sense to me because I think one thing, I've looked at investing in REITs before. I used to have some money in REITs. I kind of pulled everything I had out of them and in the stock market and put it in my own properties. but you didn't really know what you were investing in. As you said, you know what asset class you're in, maybe some of the properties, but it's constantly changing. You are relying on that portfolio manager. Just like if you're investing in a mutual fund, you're relying on that portfolio manager. So it is a very interesting concept to be able to say, hey, I know what property I'm investing in. I know where it's at. I know it's not going to change. No, it's very cool. And this is the first time it's been done in the US, right?
Correct. And you hit the nail on the head, if I may use this analogy. What we're doing today is effectively what you've said. Is like before single asset REIT, if you want to have exposure to stocks, you need to buy a mutual fund. And you are not able to cherry pick your own stocks for your own portfolio. What we're doing is the exact same, but for real estate properties. Up until today, you are forced into a strategy from a manager. What we're going to leave basically the general public to make their own choice because we think they're smart enough.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So tell us about the Aspen REIT, what it's about, and how it got started.
Well, so we've been, going back to my little history. So in 2010, Starwood Hotel and Resort, which is now Marriott effectively, had made a commitment to their shareholders that they wanted to go into the so-called asset-light model. So at the time, Starwood was a mixed bag of management contract and property that they own on their balance sheet. But because there was a liquidity crisis, they wanted to show their shareholders that they would only focus on the management contract side of the business. So we went to see Starwood at the time and look into their portfolio and try to find out which property was in dire need of CapEx, of capital investment in order to improve the product. And at the top of the list was that ski resort hotel in Aspen, Colorado. That was really didn't have any money injected into the property for the last 10, 15 years. It was tired. It's a beautiful property. We really like the economics and the fundamentals of Aspen because I don't know how much you are familiar with the city, but it's virtually impossible to get new building permit for the sake of building more hotels. The town is so conservative, want to preserve the very charming aspects that really make Aspen such a wonderful holiday destination. So we looked at it and said, okay, this property needs money. This property is trading at a discount to replacement cost. And the environment in which the property is located is of it's a highly sexy asset. It's a fantastic location, and it will come back because it's a location that will target the 1% in the United States. And as you and I know, when there is a recovery, typically the 1% recover faster than the rest of the general public. So it really ticks all the boxes. We bought it in 2010. We've been holding this asset for the last 7 years. Extremely happy. The hotel has been named in the past best ski resort in North America, best spa in the world. We're really the home where all the rich and famous go skiing. And we decided if we want to test the asset class of single asset REIT, there is absolutely no better asset than this one. If this one doesn't fly, that means there is no demand for single asset REIT in the United States. So I didn't want to go with a B product. We wanted to go with an A++ product, and that's what we bring to the market.
That makes sense. And yeah, I'm actually from Colorado. I don't go to Aspen much, but you can buy houses for $35 million in Aspen if you want. It's crazy up there.
I think that a couple of years back, one of the sheikhs from Saudi Arabia sold this house for $135 million.
Yes, it is crazy. And many famous people, like you said, extremely high-priced area. So how does this REIT work for investors or people who want to join up? What can they expect out of it? How do they invest into it?
It's very simple. So what we do, as I mentioned earlier, we democratize the private equity real estate investing model. So what we're offering the general public to sit as our partner and to own shares in the St. Regis Aspen Resort located in Aspen. The shares will be listed on the NYSE American Exchange, so there will be some degree of liquidity. Is it going to be the most traded stock? Absolutely not. Are you going to have access to optional liquidity should you have the desire to buy more or to take some profit off the table? Absolutely. So it will be shares listed on a national exchange. The company Aspen REIT is regulated by the SEC. The hotel is managed under a long-term management contract by Marriott, a subsidiary of Marriott, in Regis. And we, as Elevated Return, are managing the manager. So it's a very simple structure. What to expect in terms of return? In the A1 circular, we've built up the so-called magic page. And if we look at pro forma historical number, it indicates that based on a 90% dividend policy, the expected yield at the IPO price will be around 5.8%.
Okay. And is there a minimum amount people have to buy to get into that investment, or is it you can buy a partial share? How does that work?
No, the minimum lot size is 100 shares, and the price of the share is $20. So if you multiply the minimum lot size by the price, the minimum investment is $2,000.
Okay. And when you create this,
it's pretty cool. If somebody comes to you and say you can play with next to the big boys, the BlackRock, the Prince Al Jaweed, for a mere $2,000, and you've got a 5.8%, we believe that this is a highly compelling offer.
Right. No, it's very interesting. And I guess, what are your plans with the resort? Are you planning to leave it as it is and just keep managing it? Or are you planning to infuse this money into it and make it better and change a lot of things?
Well, we've been owning the asset since 2010. We've injected in excess of $50 million in upgrade and refurbishment of the property. We have just finished refurbishing the restaurant prior to the winter season, the restaurant, the lobby, all the carpeting in all the common areas, and we've built up a new bar. So we are a manager that believes the old days of owning a hotel and doing nothing for 10 years and then spending a lot of money recreating the product are gone. We think that in order to improve the guest experience, you need to be constantly improving here and there to create a better experience for the guests. So we've been very successful at doing this for the last 7 years, and we intend on keeping the same strategy going forward.
Oh, very cool. What is your end plan for it? Are you planning just to kind of have this REIT go on forever, or is there a certain amount of time that it's guaranteed to exist? Is there ever an end game with this investment?
Well, the end game, I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but I think that what the end game is going to be at one day, somebody's going to want to own this asset because it's a highly desirable asset, and there might be an investor writing an unsolicited offer to the board. And if the board of independent directors think that the price is right, the board will entertain a sale to the prospective buyer, and the money will be returned to all the shareholders of the REIT. So effectively, it's very clear to say there is an income stream, but one day somebody will make an offer that we can't refuse, and the asset will be sold, and hopefully a very decent profit will be returned to the REIT shareholders.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Is there any kind of policies in place that says, you can't sell it for less money than you have into it so the shareholders would lose money, or is that just completely up to the principals? It's
completely up to the board. But obviously, we have all our interests aligned. We, as current owner, will retain 51% of the interest into the asset. So everyone has the same interest. And if the board does not believe that it's the right transaction, the transaction will never be even contemplated. So we have a board which is made of professional independent directors, and their duty is to make sure that the fiduciary interest of the shareholders, basically the priority of this company.
That makes sense. Very interesting. I have learned quite a bit about REITs with this. Assuming that this goes as planned, it's a success for you guys, what are your plans after this? Are you going to look for more single shared REITs in the future? And what type of properties would you look at coming up?
Absolutely. We've actually, this is effectively for us a kind of proof of concept exercise. We've lined up access to a series of highly recognizable hospitality assets. And should the first one fly off the shelf, then we will be bringing to the market a series of similar properties. You're asking me, what type of property do we believe fits really the business model? I think that property that has a high degree of emotional content fit the bill. I think that people are excited to be shareholder in the Aspen, St. Regis Aspen, because as we mentioned, this is where the rich and famous go skiing, is one of the best hotels in the country, and it is highly, for the lack of a better word, sexy. I think that once you touch into this asset class, the emotional premium to be an owner is quite high. If you take a motel by the side of a motorway, I'm not too sure that people will assign the same emotional ownership premium to it. So our focus will be to bring trophy assets that any investor can recognize fairly easily and to capitalize on that emotional premium.
That makes sense. And speaking of this hotel, if you're an investor in the REIT, do you get any kind of help getting a room or a reservation? Are there any advantages to being an investor in the REIT?
Well, one of the advantages is that you're invited to the shareholders meeting. And I think that if you go to the shareholders meeting, we'll put together a very good show. It will be fun. And I think that investor will be able to commingle with very interesting people. Once you're a shareholder, a lot of people ask me and say, are you going to give discount to the people owning the shares? And I always tell them, you don't want a discount because you're a shareholder. So effectively, the more money the hotel makes, the higher the share price. So you don't want to have special privilege, because if those privileges are granted to you, I have to grant it to everybody else and effectively deplete the profit and the value of the asset. So I think that the fact that investor will be able to be an owner of the St. Regis Aspen is great in itself. To enjoy an above market yield is a second benefit. And like I said, we'll do a very good show for the shareholders meeting every year in Aspen.
That makes sense. And I agree with the giving perks. I think it's usually better to keep everything separate and accounted for. Otherwise, can make a big mess figuring out who paid what and who gets what. Stephane, great information. I think those were all the questions I had about the REIT. If people are interested in investing in this, you mentioned it's going to be on the New York Exchange. Is there somewhere they can get more information on, a website they can go to?
Yes, underwriter is the Maxim Group, and the Maxim Group has put together a website. So we are raising money under the A1 job tax regulation. And the website is, you can go to aspenreid.com, so www.aspenreid.com, and all the information about the offering, the underwriter, how to participate will be part of the website.
Great. And I'll put that on the show notes as well, so people can get there on my site on InvestFourMore if they're interested. Very interesting concept. I've learned a lot myself about the single asset REIT. Is there anything else you want to add before we head out of here?
Not really. I think we try to explain the product as simple as it is, but it's really, truly a simple product. You are a direct shareholder into a property, and you enjoy 100% of the economics of that property, and the shares are listed on the stock exchange. And hopefully the public like this product, and we'll be able to see 25 or 50 single asset REITs within the next 24 months.
Actually, I just thought of one more question before we head over here. If you become an investor, a shareholder in this project, how much do you get to see of the financials of what's going on in that hotel? Do you get full disclosure, or are you just given a kind of a watered down report? How does that work?
Well, if you go right now into the website, you see the A1 offering document. And in the A1 offering document, you have a management discussion about the financials. You have the audited financials. And we are not providing forward guidance. But other than that, historically speaking, you take a look at the circular, and then you see the degree of disclosure that we are doing for these properties. So We believe that the more transparency you give to the shareholders, the more value you created. So this is probably as much information as anyone will ever get looking at a property asset.
Okay, awesome. Well, Stephane, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. A lot of great information. Head to Aspen soon.
I'm going to have to... That is great.
Oh, for sure. If I head to Aspen, I'm going to have to check this out for sure, because now I'm interested in it. But yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate it. And yeah, good luck on this project.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, you too.